Welcome back. I am with the founder of Cosmo, Josh.
Thank you, Jack.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we did a part one. We really went into just the whole healthcare system, your background in terms
Yeah.
of what you struggled with in health and how you healed yourself naturally and discovered, really went through the Western medicine route and then got into Eastern medicine. And then from there, you started, after obviously a lot of experience through working on different projects for different companies,
Yeah.
you started your own venture, Cosmo. Can you tell us a little bit more about your company and what your mission is?
Yeah. So the mission is twofold. It's to simplify wellness, and that's the first part of it. And what I mean by that is a lot. So playing into what I was saying last time with the healthcare industry, healthcare is rooted in this idea of looking at the body through as a like microcosm in little
Yeah.
micro like little
Siloed,
yeah
right? It's
silo
not a holistic
exactly
view. Everything is
exactly
very siloed nowadays.
exactly everything is siloed, and the sciences that are used are siloed. You think about the equipment that is used in a doctor's office, a stethoscope, right, a pulse
Mm,
oximeter. What's happening in the wellness industry is they're just taking that same equipment and bringing it into the wellness industry. So we said on this retreat actually that the wellness industry is looking like the healthcare industry over time.
mm,
And it's because it's so complicated. Even if you think of an Aura ring, it has a pulse oximeter on it, and it has a heart rate monitor and a couple other pieces of tech that come from the medical field, and it has an algorithm that's calculating your heart rate variability, which then calculates your
hmm
readiness score, etc. Now,
Yeah.
so it's really a complex piece of technology. The interesting thing is, in all these natural modalities, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, etc.,
hmm
it's simple and it's rooted in nature. And that's really important to think about. So, like when a doctor diagnoses me, if they want to get the full scope of what's going on, they need to run blood work, they need to do a bunch of different kinds of scans,
Yeah.
CT, X-ray, etc. If an acupuncturist wants to diagnose me, they look at my pulse,
Yeah.
they look at my tongue, and they ask me questions and they converse with me. And that human touch, that human element is lost in today's medicine system, and it's lost in our wellness industry.
Yeah.
And so, not that it's wrong, but people who want to be high performance, they have to do so many things to achieve that body. You think of a Brian Johnson, and what he sets out, and that's great what he's doing for the industry, but that's not for
Partly.
everyone. Partly, sure.
Absolutely.
We
He's
can,
very biohacky,
yes.
kind of some gimmicks and stuff. Has a
Well,
lot of people taking some supplements.
yes, 100%. He does. And he honestly probably shot for an extreme so that he can stand out from the rest of the pack in the
Absolutely.
market.
Great marketing, great
Great marketing.
businessman, super smart. I mean, he's a ex-founder of, was it Venmo or some super
Yeah,
successful
something
company.
successful.
So he had millions and millions of dollars,
Yeah.
which isn't attainable for a lot of people, which is
No.
why kind of like Paul Check or someone like Troy
Yes.
Casey, or
Yes.
they're really about drilling down to the bedrock of health, right? What did your ancestors do? Well, they spend time out in nature. They got plenty of
Exactly.
sun. They ate natural, few ingredient foods.
Exactly.
And they had good community.
Exactly.
And all these things make for a really healthy body and a vital life, to where most people lack that, and they try and supplement it or, biohack it with red light devices and such when they don't even
Exactly.
have the foundations.
Exactly. So you're making me smile because
Yeah.
you've led to the second part. Simplify wellness. How do we simplify wellness? We simplify it by going back to our roots.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Chinese medicine is. And that's the modality that healed me. And I truly believe in it. So I want to reduce barriers to accessing these modalities. So then I started thinking about what are the problems with the modality? Because a lot of people are really rooted in the traditional
Yeah.
practices and not so much. My mic good?
No, it's perfect.
All right. A lot of people are rooted in the traditional practices and not so keen to change it and adapt it to modern times.
Yeah.
But it needs to adapt because lifestyles have changed. Not everyone can afford to live like this or
Yeah.
will live like this, wants to live like this. They want to have a healthy life. So how do you blend it into modern lifestyle? And so you start looking at the technologies that exist today in the wellness industry and outside, and you look for things that can enhance it and make it more accessible.
Yeah.
And also, we want to root it in science. One of the biggest problems with alternative care is that when the Flexner report came out, when the entire industry just went allopathic, there wasn't, sorry, mosquito, there wasn't a lot
Okay.
of, yeah, let me,
Wasn't a lot of what?
there wasn't a lot of scientific proof of what the value is of of the traditional medicine.
Yeah.
Because it's very personalized,
Mm.
right? What my acupuncturist will prescribe for me to do, even with gut issues or whatever I may have, if someone has the same issues as me, it will be a totally different regimen. And that has to do with my body type. That has to do with my ancestry. A lot of different factors play into that.
Big
So from a technology and scientific standpoint, the Flexner report deemed that that's not rooted in science because it was hard to prove.
Yeah.
The fact is today, with data, with access to science and education, we can start proving some
Yep.
of this stuff.
Freedom of speech, different people diving into it. It's not one standardized system
It's
as
not,
much
exactly.
anymore, or at least that system is falling apart.
Exactly. So you were asking what the mission of the brand is. It's to reduce barriers to accessing alternative care, and it's to simplify wellness. It should be easy for everyone to comprehend and do on a daily basis. It shouldn't be this biohacky, crazy supplement regimen
Yeah.
where you take 70 supplements, you wake up at certain hours, all this stuff. Yes, there's a place for that.
Yeah.
Maybe not for everyone, but there's a place for that.
And what's really awesome as well with your story, Josh, is how you went and you're not, didn't get into business because you saw a huge market opportunity to go and make some money. You went through your own healing journey of healing a chronic, incurable disease, and that got you really into holistic health. And then from there, your
Yeah.
passion for just alternative medicine developed, and you ended
Yeah.
up prototyping and developing this product right here.
Yes.
We have two of them on the table right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of cupping and
Acupuncture and gua sha,
Yeah.
So I'll start with gua sha. Both practices, gua sha and cupping, are traditional practices rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, but they have lineages across many other
Go back
modalities.
thousands of years.
Yeah, they've been practiced in ancient Egypt. There are like
Yeah.
stories about them and even illustrations of them using it, which is this idea of one, negative pressure against the skin, which draws blood to the surface, right, and gets out all that lactic acid.
Yeah.
And then also with gua sha, it's this scraping mechanism that is moving your fascia and bursting blood vessels.
Yeah.
Both have similar rooted practices, similar rooted benefits, a little different in nature. Cupping, to start, has been a incredible modality. I think cupping is better than a massage. So cupping started in acupuncture, and it was known to release toxins. Like I said, it pulls lactic
Yeah.
acid, other toxins according to TCM, to the surface. And then in the early 2000s, there was this physical therapist. I forgot his name.
Yeah.
And he had I think it was a back injury, right? And nothing could heal him. He tried everything. Let me take a little of that on my neck. So nothing could heal him. And he went to an acupuncturist after trying everything, and she put a couple cups on him. And normally cupping is either this idea of something called slide cupping,
Yeah.
where they put some kind of oil and they glide it across your skin and it turns very red because of the scraping and the pulling of the blood, or it's static and it just sits there with like 10, 20
Yeah.
cups, right? She put it on him, put it in static, and said, "Please stay still." Well, she leaves the room, and he's just moving around with it. And he discovered something called negative pressure mobility with that. And she said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm a physical therapist. I have to." Now it became practiced by Michael Phelps. It was his secret weapon in the 2016 Olympics. And it's starting to be adopted worldwide. But the thing is, it's really hard to access unless you go to an acupuncturist or now a massage therapist,
Yeah.
because that physical therapist modernized it. So how can you access it at home? And that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is the Nova Cup. It is a electric smart cupping device paired with heat, red light, vibration, and something that we're coining rhythmic cupping.
Yeah.
And rhythmic cupping is also imitating something very traditional in nature. And you can see it actually in action, where it's this patterned suction.
Pulled out my whole arm.
Yeah, there you go.
And what's really cool about that too is you brought up earlier, all massage is really like compacting, right? Like they're pushing your muscle into your body. That's the first time to where it's getting like lifted up and more so like loosened in that
And
unique way.
increasing mobility
Yeah.
in doing that too. And then if you pair it with mobility and like athletics, so it's a great performance tool too.
Yeah.
If you pair it with mobility, it's an incredible tool for your flexibility. Try to stretch with it, because imagine you're stretching your fascia, you do this, then put this right here on your shoulder blade,
Yeah.
and then try to stretch more. It's like just that increased elasticity of your muscles.
Yeah, and just my own testimonial, I've been interested in cupping and holistic health for a long time, and I've never wanted to go get cupping
go.
done because it looks super painful, and I've heard a lot of horror stories of people that try cupping. The person that's doing it isn't really educated. They end up burning them or doing something of the sorts. What's so cool about this is it's not invasive. It's, you control it, you control the pressure. The heat's really relaxing and soothing, and it also has red light.
Yes.
Correct? So
Yeah,
it's
it
like
has red light there.
3 different healing modalities in
Yes.
this, and as well as like rhythmic cupping. So it's
Yeah.
like going in and out, which
Yeah.
is completely different from regular cupping to where it just pulls
Yes.
once.
Yes. So there is something in Chinese medicine called flash cupping. Cupping is usually done via fire or mechanical cup. In
Yeah.
Chinese medicine, always fire, like in the traditional nature of it. And so they light a candle or a cotton ball under a cup, and then they put it on your body, and it builds a vacuum because of all the CO2 inside the cup, right? And what they do often is they put it on, take it off, put it on, take it
Yeah.
off. It can only be administered by a practitioner. And what that is doing is it's rushing blood flow to the surface, so it's helping speed up recovery in a much more rapid fashion. So this automates that. And that's
Wow.
really cool. And then on top of that, the flash cupping on this, what it's doing, the rhythmic cupping, the motions are also helping with your muscle elasticity, because it's moving your
Yeah.
fascia. It's moving it up and down and really helping soften it and loosen your body and calm your nervous system down.
Absolutely. So this is a newer product, and your main product or best-selling product was your gua sha that has
Yeah.
infrared light
It
in
has, it has red light therapy in it, and that's the new one.
What's
It's called,
this?
that's called the Lunastone Ultra, and then take out the smaller one. That's called the Lunastone.
Yeah.
And
it just
they
pulls off.
come, it just pulls off. It has a little cap. Gua sha is similar to what I was saying earlier. It's also a traditional remedy. You scrape the skin, the surface of the skin, till it becomes
Yeah.
red, and it's releasing something called sha, which is what in Chinese medicine is called wind and toxins in your body. In Western allopathic care, it was rediscovered about 15 years ago with some technique. There was this physical therapist called Graston, and he realized it is really great for physical injuries on your joints. So he would start scraping the joints with a steel blade. So it
Wow.
has many applications to it. And then recently, in the past 5 years, it was discovered in cosmetic circles because it's great for lymphatic drainage, for puffiness release around the eyes,
Yeah.
and going down the body, especially in the morning. Women love to do gua sha and those jade rollers and all
Yeah.
of that stuff. So we wanted to enhance it. We wanted to make it more attractive, accessible, and better for you.
Yeah.
And so this is enhanced with red light therapy, heat, and vibration.
And it's also super ergonomic and easy to hold. I remember I
Yeah.
got just a regular gua sha, and it helped. But when I had this, it's a lot nicer when
Yeah,
it's
man.
all nice and warm and has infrared light, which
Exactly.
is super cool. And can you expand a little bit more about like the lymphatic system, which is what I've heard is like one of the biggest impacts of gua sha, is it allows you to actually get that lymphatic system like moving and flushing out toxins.
Yeah. So your myofascia, your fascia is basically the soft tissue. If you ever see like a chicken skin, or you eat a
Yeah.
chicken and
Or in red meat,
Yeah,
it's
or
like
in
that
red- yes.
white connective material that
Exactly.
no one thinks about, but it's actually water, basically,
Yes.
like crystalline
It's-
water.
Yes, it's crystalline water. It's liquid in your body, and it's actually the thing that holds your entire body together.
Yeah.
And it can
Which
get,
isn't talked about at all in
No.
like mainstream health. This is like a very new or emerging sort of thing. And some of the best
Yeah.
healers I know, I mean, Holistic Tim, for example, he works as a cranial sacral
Yes.
therapist, and a lot of his work is really changes people's lives. Even here at the retreat,
Yeah.
he's worked on some people, and shoulders,
It's incredible,
spines
his
going back in
therapies.
alignment just by like hands and telling your body that you're safe to
Yes.
relax and heal. And then those fascial lines kind of go back together. And it's also big in like primal patterns, right?
Yes.
So like these kind of fascial lines, it's all through your body,
Yes.
but they're really connective from like, fingertip to
Yeah.
opposite heel.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there are theories in Chinese medicine, you know, when you acupuncture all the points, there are channels that run throughout your body
Yeah.
and they're connected to different organs. And essentially the idea of Chinese medicine in all these modalities is A, to bring balance, but bring balance by removing blockages and stagnation in the body. So there are a lot of theories, and it hasn't been proven, and something, this is why I created Cosmo, something I'd like to prove in the future, that the meridians, the channels on the body sit inside the fascia. Because when they're needling very like light on the surface.
Yeah.
And that's right where your fascia is. Your fascia is the layer right under your skin.
Yeah. But it also runs throughout your entirety
It runs
of
throughout your body, and so do the meridians.
all the way to your bones.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Are
true.
you saying meridians do as well?
Meridians run throughout your body, and they connect to your organs.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are theories. It hasn't been proven, and I'm not here coming and making any claims.
Well, I mean, a lot of things are theories, right? The
Yes.
whole thing that happened a couple of years ago, that was all based on theories backed by science,
Yeah.
paid people that, just want to make some money. And it's kind of the world we live in, is it's what science do you choose to look at, or which
Exactly.
way? I'd rather go the way of my ancestors that, before
Yeah.
all of these diseases arose, really.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. The way they lived was in a very succinct way with nature. There isn't, unfortunately, today Western proof to it, but we do know it has worked historically. Is there a place for Western medicine? 100%. I
Yeah.
heard recently someone on this retreat, her daughter had a brain aneurysm.
Right?
Yeah, and like, look, you need Western
Yeah.
care for that. I'm not dismissing Western care. I'm
Yeah.
dismissing the misrepresentation of Eastern
Yeah.
medicine in the entire Western market and culture.
Yeah. The
And-
Western, there's no really preventative care. It's
Exactly.
like the world and kind of the way
Yes.
the system's built up, especially in the US, is, it's very easy if you're not hypervigilant to
Yes.
get sick.
Yeah.
And then when you get sick, it's, usually a lot more like surface level stuff,
Yeah.
but they're not getting at the roots.
Exactly.
Usually ever. So you
Exactly.
come in, they may, do some amazing surgery and save your life. But unless you really dive into healing and what caused the problem,
Exactly.
you're never going to
Yeah.
really solve it.
Exactly. I think I said this on our last podcast. That's what I learned in traditional Chinese medicine. The first time I went in with my gut issues, my acupuncturist told me it's emotional. And I said, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I'm still learning
Yeah.
how to control my emotions and how they relate to the gut. And I took courses on it, and I learned how different emotions are associated with different organs. When you feel that deep anxiety and you feel it in the pit of your stomach,
Absolutely.
anxiety is related to your spleen and your stomach channel.
Yeah.
So there are so many connections that if you just pay attention, the actual theories around these modalities are so simple, like yin and yang, and it's
Yeah.
just rooted in there can't be no day without night.
Yeah.
Daylight, you wouldn't recognize what it is theoretically if
Without
you didn't
night.
have night.
Yeah,
if
you didn't have the
both.
contrast.
And the idea of all these modalities at the end of the day is to walk that tightrope, is
Yeah.
to walk the fine line of the yin and yang and find your balance. And you're going to fall off 100%. But there are tools and practices to bring you back. And that's what these are.
Yeah.
And they're also tools that can be preventative simultaneously. You can use this to prevent a cold. You can also use this to just get rid of an ache.
Yeah.
And the same with that. You can use that to help with your puffiness in the morning.
Yeah.
You can also use it to help with your recovery on your muscles when you do a crazy workout. You can also use it to prevent other illnesses and colds, and you can
Yeah.
use it for acupressure. So these tools, that's really the idea, is create more tools and practices and services that can reduce the barriers and simplify wellness. Everything is rooted in simplicity with what we do.
Absolutely. So on the business side, what's been the number one piece of, or the biggest business lesson you've learned over the past year?
That's a really good question. Funny enough, I'm preaching simplicity. I think simplifying is really important.
Simple scales, fancy fails. Most people try and
Yes.
overcomplicate their business, their life,
Yep.
their diet, everything.
Yeah.
And that usually fails, to where if people really it's like the old quote from Leonardo da Vinci, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. It's
never
hard
heard
to
that.
be
Yeah.
simple. It's hard to, go and not make things complicated
Yeah.
when we insist on making everything so complicated, relationships, business, etc.
Yeah, that's a very interesting quote. I've never heard that one. And, it applies to this, it applies to my life. So I'm trying to take that practice. And I think as we're sitting here talking, I'm realizing it. That's what my acupuncturist means. I have gut issues and anxieties related to the gut. Overthinking is related to the gut.
Yeah.
And it's almost this cyclical system. And so you need to work on simplifying it. That's something I'm always working on. My co-founder, Patrick, has been pivotal for that.
Yeah.
And just really focused on one or two tasks at a time and executing that. Right now, we're really focused on pushing our marketing, getting content out there because people need to know about this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really been my focus for the past couple weeks leading up to coming here and even before coming
Yeah.
here. And it will be my focus through the end of the year and just simplify it,
That's
talk
awesome.
about the practice, you know?
What are your 2 favorite books?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have two. I have one.
What's that?
It's Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yeah.
And I read it once and I reread it a couple years later. I skimmed it the second time. I want to read it again. And the only reason I was inspired to read it was because I went to school for entrepreneurship and it was always to do stuff in the health and wellness practice, but I was deeply inspired by Steve Jobs. A lot of people think Steve Jobs is an innovator, a thinker, a creative. To me, Steve Jobs, his goal in life was to elevate human consciousness.
Yeah. He's a
And
very spiritual being.
deeply. And if you look at what the phone and technology has done specifically, it has elevated our consciousness by giving us, for better or worse, so much access to information that now we understand what's going on and what's not going on in the world. We can decipher for ourselves. It has elevated. It really has. If you think about 10 years ago, a lot of things were not being discussed that they are today. So I really commend him for that. I was always fascinated by him. And then I came across a story that I was reading about that he read this book every year for like 40 years. It was the only book that sat on his desk. In fact, when he passed away, he had planned to give it up or to give out copies of it to every person that attended his funeral.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like crazy tech leaders like Bill Gates, you know,
Yeah.
Michael Dell, etc. And he gave them a little brown box. The book was in it with a little paper on top that said "Enlighten yourself." When I read that book, I think my mind, my jaw was just like dropped most of
Yeah.
the time. It took me a year and a half to read. I will never forget, bringing it back to this, one quote that came from that book from Yogananda, who's the autobiography is
Yeah.
about, his guru that brought him into yoga. And it said, "Our relation with nature is like a captive in the witness box. We cross-examine her, minutely challenge her ways in human skills that cannot measure her hidden values." And when you think to what Steve Jobs said, he says it's the crazy ones that can actually change the world. And he says the world is made up by people no smarter than yourself. So everything, this camera system, this podcast was invented by people.
Absolutely. And when you take people off the pedestal and realize that a lot of the people and best businessmen, scientists, whatever it is out there aren't so much different than you,
No.
it's you realize that you have a lot more power than you think.
Exactly. And the idea was from both Yogananda's book and Steve Jobs, from that quote, is that the world is invented by these systems. But at the end of the day, they're systems of thinking. And there are systems of thinking that are beyond this, that we
Yeah.
still have yet to uncover, i.e. traditional healing. We uncovered it, but I think there's more to be unlocked about it. We're just learning. Right now, we look at the world through physics, mathematics,
Yeah.
chemistry, etc. We're just discovering quantum physics and what that world
Yeah.
looks like. So it's a really fascinating time, but I think it's really impactful. That quote really impacted me and what Steve Jobs said, because there are more systems to be created. And
Yeah, that's awesome. And Yogananda's been a pivotal part in my life. I've lived
yeah,
in
I've
San
heard.
Diego for a few years. I also read most of his book. I haven't finished it, but
Amazing.
I've been doing the lessons in SRF. There's a little ant crawling on my mic.
Let it be, I guess.
Let it be. And it's super impactful. It offers a whole new perspective on like religion, spirituality that most people don't really consider. And he also goes in on how to really get into deep meditation.
Yeah, he does. I remember reading about that in his original book, and it was really impactful to me, and I did try to start meditating. Honestly, it's inspiring me to go back to SRF and learn more about the practices.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably the most impactful book. There have been books here and there that I've read, more so business-sided. Like I recently read Day Trading Intention. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
how it-
Matisse recommended that one, and
Yeah.
obviously he's a killer in business
Yeah.
and super wise as well. And when
Super
he
wise.
recommended that, thought I should
Yeah.
check that out.
I'm trying to remember. There is this one, I forgot the name, this incredible author. It talks about how these major like nexus events happen in life, and it's not Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari. I want to read that book really bad. I know it just came out, but it's about how major businesses are created and they create a nexus in the industry. I will tell you offline. I have to go look it
Yeah.
up. That book I remember when I read that. That really changed my perspective. It talks about how everything is systematic in life, and if you really just look at it from a broad sense, you can see how the world operates. So
Yeah.
life is interesting, man.
Nice. Yep. And on that note, this Mexican sun is getting pretty warm.
Yes,
Are
it
there
is.
any closing thoughts you'd like?
I just want to thank you, Jack. It's been really nice to get to know you on this retreat, to have these two podcasts.
I appreciate that, Josh.
I can see what you're doing with Spark Wildlife. It's very
Spark Wildfire.
Spark Wildfire, excuse me.
Yeah.
Please correct me. But it is very interesting what is happening in the world. We need more leaders, and you're there to empower them. So kudos to you. And for anyone that is looking for any relation to alternative care, any access, when I was looking, it was really hard. There are a lot of tools and resources, Cosmo being one of them. So just reach out to us.
Yeah.
You know?
And on that note, I highly recommend Cosmo. I was never going to go in and really get cupped by anyone unless I had the perfect opportunity. This makes it easy. It's like a self massage. Think about it as a massage gun, but even better. It's it's has its own unique way of healing you, as well as gua shas, infrared, heat therapy. All of that is really valuable, and it's just another tool in the tool belt to add on to their arsenal, which you definitely need a good bit of that in this modern world when there's so much chronic disease.
You do. If you want a massage gun, think twice, get this, because you were saying earlier, massage compresses. This also actually compresses. It provides a counter pressure from this plate here that's vibrating and actually feels like a massage, and I'm sure you felt that. So these two products are incredible. Couldn't recommend them more.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on the podcast, Josh. This has been awesome. I know you're going to be up to huge things and change a lot of people's life with what you're doing in business, and just sharing your presence with people. It's I've seen a lot of people learn a lot from you this retreat.
Thank you, Jack.
We'll have to run a part 3 sometime.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll be back.
Awesome.
All right, man.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.